Hello, my name is Vincent. I am the author of Zen and the Art of Resistance Training, Yogic and Scientific Approach to Weight Training. One of the reasons that I call this book Zen is the art. Zen is the method of being in the present. It's going through activities without thought. It's like you're simply part of the process without analyzing or thinking about it or having thoughts get in the way. For instance, people who are world-class martial artists like Bruce Lee, many other martial artists, or world-class guitarists, they practice and practice and practice. They put a lot of thought into it as they're practicing, before, during, and after, and they're trying to master it, and they struggle and they think, and then they get into a competition. They reach a certain high level of expertise, and they have put so much groundwork into thinking and into doing that once they perform, it's timeless. It's effortless. It becomes just you are the weight. You are the exercise. You're doing it. You're people who do like Malmsteen, other guitarists like that they can never do what they're doing if they were trying to think of the notes that they're trying to play. They're simply doing it without thought. I realize this more. That's the reason why I liked weightlifting instead of because compared to yoga, because I tried meditating. You're sitting still and you're meditating and your thoughts keep intruding in, because one of the exercises, not all the time, one of the exercises for meditating is to divorce yourself of your thoughts. Try to keep your mind open and empty or blank, and basically thoughts keep crawling in. It's like a power tool that's running out of control. With weightlifting, I liked it because it was when my mind would quiet. It would no longer be a busy hive of bees. My mind would be able to be quiet, and it was peaceful and exhilarating at the same time. So that's why I liked weightlifting. That's the essence of Zen. And of course, it is an art. Resistance training isn't just about science, because there's so much that's still unknown. We're only really until, except for some of the stuff that I have and a few other people have. Most people, the way they lift, they're kind of like in the wheel stage of that. They're just lifting, and you'll see when I compare it in other chapters. Anyways, why they are doing things. They don't even know why they're doing something for 10 reps. They just automatically think, I'm going to do 10 reps. They just have no idea where, it's an arbitrary number, really. Who thought of 10 reps? But so that's why it's an art. Your body, once you get the science, you still have to know yourself, and there's an art to figuring, okay, I have all these facts, but I got to kind of feel, because I've maybe never done this before, I got to feel which direction is to go. And that's in yogic. Of course, I use many techniques in yoga towards my approach in weightlifting, which makes weightlifting, what I do, a lot more effective and powerful. Now, we're on chapter 11 right now. Chapter 11. And the title of this chapter is The Different Types of Fitness. Okay? And so, I go for the different types of fitness. And what are the different types? Well, we have aerobic fitness, or cardiorespiratory endurance. Now, this type of fitness really focuses, it focuses on the whole body, but essentially you're really targeting, pushing your cardiovascular endurance. You're trying to, sustain over long periods of times, and you're trying to move as quickly as you can without going into oxygen debt. So the goal of a marathon runner is not just to run 21 miles. If he's running 21 miles in 2 hours, let's say, he wants to, except for the last kickoff, except for the last sprint, the whole time marathon runners, long distance runners, never go into oxygen debt. They're long, deep breaths, huge lung capacity, and they're not panting like a sprinter is panting, or a weightlifter sometimes pants. They're really building up their VO2 max, or building up their lung capacity and their ability for the body to go long periods of times, exerting muscular endurance and the whole body. And of course, they want to try to get down. If they could cut the hours to 1/2, they could cut from 2 hours in a marathon to 1 hour. Of course, that would be a world's record. That would be phenomenal. But that's their goal. But even if they were to try to get to an hour, they would it's this type of fitness would require that they not be breathing too heavy like sprinters do at the end of their race. And of course that would be awesome if they were breathing as hard as the sprinters were the entire 21 miles and were able to actually do that and so forth. But and that would be an awesome goal, I suppose, as well. And so basically they're hitting the oxidative system. I mean, all their systems are being stimulated, but mainly this is utilizing the oxidative system. They're never in oxygen debt, and so this is more of burns the fat that's on their body, and maybe the fatty acids, high fats, and so forth they may have taken before the race. Now, anaerobic fitness is a fitness that sprinters have. Sprinters have a high degree of anaerobic fitness. Dan O'Brien, a high degree of anaerobic fitness. In fact, there's a good workout called DOB's, Dan O'Brien's, that he figured if he could do this thing like 16 times in a row at a certain intensity, he would become the most anaerobically fit person in the world, and realize he would get a gold medal, and he did. But anaerobic is at the end of each short burst of intensity, you'd be incredibly out of breath, just sucking up air, So you're always in oxygen debt, and this is the phosphagen system. This utilizes the phosphagen system, and this will burn more blood sugar. This burns more blood sugar. And so a lot of people need to carb up sometimes before doing it really intense anaerobic fitness. The two ways of avoiding getting fat, of course, is burning up your fat stores by doing this, and keeping the excess amount in America, or whatever, we get an excess amount of sugar in our diets, or starches, and this will help to keep that down. I know people who are diabetic, and they do weightlifting, and they said that the weightlifting and wind sprints are the best thing to keep their sugar levels, to manage their blood glucose levels for getting high. If they had to pick either one, they would go for weightlifting or wind sprints. Now we have flexibility. That's a type of fitness. Now this is determined to a small degree, or maybe to a large degree, by genetics. Everybody's attached differently. Like I used to be able to do splits in either direction, horizontal, one leg in front, one leg behind me, or each leg like Jean-Claude Van Damme in his movies, side to side. And I had thick squat legs and a very strong squatter, but I could do splits. Yet even when I weighed skinny and weighed 130 pounds, I could never do a lotus or even a half lotus position. It just the way my hips or whatever are attached. And you got to be careful about flexibility exercises. Some people do the long, like minute long or more static flexibility exercises. Some people think that's dangerous and can leave you susceptible to injury. The sprinters do active stretching. That's what they mostly do, and they try to avoid the other static stretching. Agility fitness is the ability to move from any one given direction quickly, up, down, side to side, back and forth. So the football players go through a lot of agility drills around the cones. We have body composition, the amount of muscle mass and fat, percentage of body fat that you have. So, you have lean muscle tissue, you have bones and this and that and so forth, and then there's fat. A lot of Americans are way, way too fat. One time I was down to 8% body fat at 181 pounds. I think I might have been down to 5 or less percent body fat when I weighed 158. But my greatest strength ratio was when I weighed 170 some pounds, 180 pounds, and I had 8% body fat. I've been as high as probably 40% body fat after the car accident. I lost a lot of my muscle. It took 2 years. It wasn't like I lost muscle mass overnight like a lot of steroid boys do when they quit lifting or taking steroids. It took a long time for me to lose my mass, and I still kept a good deal of mass, but my body fat went up. It took 2 years to get fat. It went from 180 to 235. And that would have been an ugly sight to see all that fat piled on a table. Anyways, you want to keep your body fat composition within reason. Someone like Charles Poliquin believes that most athletes, many athletes, can get down to 5% without any loss of muscular strength or power or endurance. Some people feel they can't get that low. Anything lower, he believes, for bodybuilding compositions puts all those other issues at risk. Now we have muscular strength, muscular power. People wonder what the difference is. Muscular strength is the ability to contract and exert force against an immovable or movable object. and to be able to exert that strength to move that object, possibly, if you can. That's the object. And it's not necessarily like a blinding speed involved. It's not like a powerful burst. It's, it's somebody who could do a slow curl with like 100, 200 pounds. That's showing strength. Power, and that's powerlifting is the same thing. Most powerlifters, when they're pushing a squat or a bar, they're going pretty heavy, and it tends to be slower, more controlled than, say, the snap of an Olympic bar from an Olympic lifter. Olympic lifters are really exerting more power. In fact, Olympic lifters, a lot of experts say that should be called power lifting. Okay, that should be, because they're exerting far more power than most power lifters. Now, what I've done, you'll see throughout the book, is I, at an early age, before I understood the difference, I understood certain concepts of Olympic lifting, and I utilized many of the techniques of speed and timing and synchronizing and technique in with powerlifting. And so a lot of my training is done with like a great deal of power, great deal of like velocity. And I have trained Olympic lifters to also not give a preponderance of training to using strength, heavy weights, but I've given some Olympic lifters some exercises that their coaches said they should avoid, and actually it really helped them out. So but all schools could, the whole thing is that we should not ignore anything, really. Muscular endurance is able to do something time after time after time. Now, if I do 100 pounds in the bench, let's say, and I do 100 pounds, 200 reps, and I do 200 reps at, so let's say a cadence of 1 per second. It takes about 200 seconds, okay? That's about over 3 minutes, and that's going just outside the realm of the phosphagen system. Now, that's endurance. To do 100 reps, 200 reps for 100 pounds, it's endurance. Now, of course, if I could do 150 pounds, I increase the weight 150 pounds to 150 pounds to 200 reps. Well, I've increased the amount of weight by 50%, and the overall tonnage is enormous when you add 150 times 200 as compared to 100 reps times 200. And so it becomes really enormous, and that's really muscular endurance. And of course, that helps to build every aspect of training. And of course, if I was to like take that 200 reps of 150 and say, I'm going to go 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds per, 2 reps per second, or 2 reps, or 1 rep in 2 reps in 1.5 seconds, or whatever, it basically, it'll speed it up. That means, let's say if I do 200 reps in 2 seconds, 200 reps, 2 reps per second. So instead of taking 200 seconds to do it, I would take about 100 seconds, and that would be 200 reps in 1 minute and 2/3. Let's say I did 200 reps in 1 minute, 2 minutes, okay, that would be a great deal of power, and that would still be a lot of endurance. Okay, now another thing I wanted to talk about is nervous system and endocrine system fitness, and of course that comes with training and proper rest and nutrition. The whole thing is to train in such a way as to augment your nervous system and to augment and stimulate your endocrine system, because you want these systems to be stimulated and trained without overtraining. And the endocrine system needs to be trained in a certain way. Actually, both these systems are so together that a lot of people are calling these nervous endocrine system as one system, intertwined like time-space. And so you want to be able to stimulate your endocrine system to encourage your glands to become bigger and more sensitive to your needs and so forth and so on, to step up when needed. Your adrenal glands, your testicles, your pineal gland, your hypothalamus, all this stuff. So anyways, well, the hypothalamus is in the gland, but it's a part of the brain that helps to oversee all this stuff, and that's part of the nervous system. Anyways, you want to be able to stimulate it. Then we have intellectual fitness, and this is just, not just doing algebra, but, this whole process of putting together a weightlifting program, a training that's going to have you reach world-class level, because each of us are unique, each of our goals are different, and it changes from time to time. We do need to look at all this as a puzzle. We got to look at a puzzle, and it's, you got to be a scientist, you got to put together your own research, and you got to be an artist. Now, spiritual fitness is something that people would say it's kind of hard to say in a lot of mind. It's kind of subjective, but I think spiritual fitness is the melding when a person becomes holistic. And I think somebody said that's the holistic came from holy, or holy came from holistic, meaning the whole. Becoming the ultimate person of mind, body, spirit, mind and body, emotions. And when you reach all that and you don't have any of these other issues, or committing transgressions, or being filled with incongruent value systems, then you become enlightened, and you're working towards spiritual fitness. Anyway, that's the end of this is just a summary, a thumbnail sketch of what you will read in chapter 11, and what it discusses more in depth, and it's broader and deeper in each of these things on chapter 11. I hope that helps a little bit, and we'll talk to you later.